Today I'm joined by Joannes Scholtz from Digital Warrior, an amazing media person I've had the privilege to know for many years. And today we're going to talk about how you made a life decision, a decision to change your life from a city life to a coastal life, and how you adapted your business to that so that your business can serve the life that you actually live very successfully now. And I'm very envious of that because I can't hear the ocean from my house. You can from yours. So, Joe, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Willem. It's really a pleasure and a privilege to be here.
Joe, just tell us a little bit about Digital Warrior. What Digital Warrior does, and the services it provides, and the type of clients that you serve.
Okay, so I'm essentially a consultant in the digital space. I've been in digital for over 20 years. And I was reflecting the other day, before it was the days before Google and before Facebook, and when we would go to our clients and say, I'd like to introduce you to these people from Google. So we've come a long way.
Yeah.
So clients that I work with, currently I'm working with Netflix, and I work with a lot of agencies. I have been doing work with British Airways and, the banks, the telcos, and all of that. So, yeah, quite a diverse network of
I can
clients and
imagine that.
experience.
And what type of work do you do for them?
I'm essentially a strategist. I'm really good at digging deep and finding lots of information that I can then distill into what are the insights and what should clients really do. Um, and then I like to take, kind of demystify the digital landscape and just be very clear about what it is that clients need to get to do. So today, for example, I presented a strategy to a client and ended it off with a content calendar, etc. And they were like, this is heaven. Because you talk all the strategy stuff and then you conclude it with what does it look like in implementation.
No, I found that, yeah, specifically in the online space, if I can't build a mental model around it, it's usually very difficult. But I'm glad you're saying, demystifying the online space or the digital space for that matter, because it's become very challenging, and you really have to do the work. Although I see adverts still every day, just plug in this funnel and you'll make thousands of dollars per month. And I'm like, no, you won't. No, it's not going to happen. But Joe,
Yeah.
let's talk about you. So I currently live in Joburg in South Africa, and you lived here as well. And then a few years back, you made the decision to say, well, no, you know, Joburg looks beautiful in the summer, and this is for me, Joburg really looks ugly in winter. I can't stand this place in winter. And you moved down to the coast. You packed up everything, and then it was in quite a record time, it felt to me. How did that, was it a scary decision to make in the beginning?
Um, you know, I suppose it was scary, but at the time it felt like this is just what I need to do. I've got to make the life change. And being in digital marketing, I made the assumption that I could actually do that from anywhere.
Ooh.
And some of the things worked out for me, and they worked out for me brilliantly. But if I had to give somebody a tip, I'd check out how stable the internet is. You've got to be sure that you can have conference calls on digital and that you can stream and download large files and upload things. So in the beginning, it was quite tricky. I don't have Telcom at home. There's very few suppliers that can offer me Wi-Fi here. We don't have fiber. So, I finally did find a solution, and even the people that offered me the solution told me this year that they should never have given me the solution, because they can't guarantee that it can be stable. But for general purposes, it actually has worked out really well. And then I've got, here in South Africa, we seem to have regular power cuts, so my
No,
Wi-Fi is
I've not been visited by the Prince of Darkness in yonks. Yeah, whatever.
You
That's
mean weeks?
oh yeah, weeks, days, hours. It's always funny when I speak to people in Europe and say, "Well, I can't have it." Then why? No, because they're switching Joburg off. They're like, "What do you mean?" And I learned to say it like that. No, they're switching Joburg off, and then you have to explain everything. But I'm glad you said the assumption that it can work remotely, because I think a lot of people just think, yeah, let's do this. But I think with the current COVID crisis, a lot of people did discover that you can work from home, but also that it's not as easy as you always think.
Yeah, it does. It does take a certain kind of mindset to be self-motivated if you want to work alone from home. It depends on, what kind of interaction you need with people. So I walk the dogs on the beach every morning, and that gets me out of bed early. Because you don't want to be the kind of person that works from home and spends a lot of time in bed and then in front of the TV, and doesn't really actually do what needs to be done to make things happen. One of the things that I did very early on when I started Digital Warrior as a consultancy, I was also a bit afraid to be disconnected, so disconnected from the industry that I'm involved in. And so
Very
a
much,
colleague and
because
I, we started.
you're not in Cape Town, you're not in Durban, you're like, and it's not a hub of activity, if I had to use those words.
Yes, and even if you're not in like a small town like me, even if you do go into your own business as a freelancer or consultant or contractor, and you're working from home, to feel connected to what's happening in your industry and the trends and stuff like that, there are digital ways of doing that. But the face-to-face interaction and also networks lead to people referring business to you, etc. So we actually created a freelance club for our industry.
Okay.
And, we've got 30 members, and we connect. So
how many members do you have?
We've got, well, actually 29 to
29?
be exact at the very present moment. Yeah.
I understand what you mean by the connection,
Is,
because recently I had to, in my training business, I had to go to a client's office uh, and at least twice a week. And it is nice. The interaction you and I can have face to face is completely different than digital. And a lot of people say to me, I find you boring digital. I like you face to face. Um, thanks.
yeah, it's difficult to come across as a personality in the digital space, especially when the record button is on, and
Yes.
And every now and again your face freezes in compromising positions, and
Yeah, I've had that
so
one.
yeah.
Somebody sent me a WhatsApp going, "This is what I see," and I go like, "Oh goodness, not me." Okay, I like that what you say about the you have to have that connection, because also you raise something interesting. You have to have that mindset. I've been working from home for 20 years now, since 1999. And I
Wow.
just found, you have to be shaved and shampooed by 8 o'clock if you're not going to the gym. You need to be dressed like this, even if you're not seeing people. Don't sit and work in your PJs till 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Because what I found out, and I've seen that in other entrepreneurs, and then they don't look after themselves and they let it slip, and that has an effect on your self confidence and your self worth. And I found it has a very negative impact on your business. But like you said, you keep, apart from the human connection with your club, you take the dogs for a walk as well. Is there any other advice you can give just to have a bit of a human touch when you work alone in a small town?
I think, and you do this really well, Willem, is to reach out to people. So when you want an opinion on something, share it with your friends and say, hi guys, what do you think of this? Even if they're not in the same industry as you, they've got perspectives and they've got opinions. What else would I? Yeah, and I think also LinkedIn is actually quite a good platform, business platforms for connecting with people, etc. So, from a LinkedIn perspective, I'm not necessarily saying go and find new connections all the time, but actually look at who is worth following and reading the interesting comments that they make. Their news feed is more business focused, and so therefore, it's not full of friendly cats and dogs doing silly tricks and the stuff you would see on other social networks. It's more of stuff that's useful. So tapping into that as well.
But I'm glad also you said perspectives, because one thing I love calling you about a perspective. And if I'm in some kind of mood like, oh, this and this happened, and you would go like, yeah, but what about the other side? What about this? Yeah, inside I go like, oh no, she's arguing with me. She's not agreeing with me. This is not what I want now. I want a pity party. Somebody show me some empathy. But that's why I call you for advice, because I know you're always going to reflect. But Willem, there are always two sides. There's always two sides. And I think that's an important one. Don't surround yourself with yes people. Surround yourself with people that know where you want to go and help you grow to where you want to go.
And or further on that as well is it's always a good idea to have a business coach or a personal coach, that can help you on this journey as well, and have a sounding board, because oftentimes you do feel a bit alone in your thinking and not knowing who to talk to, and you don't necessarily see the positives, or you might not see the negatives. Sometimes we need to have the black hat on so that we can see, well, what if it goes down that path, and that's not necessarily a path I want to go through. So it's surrounding yourself with people that have got your back is important.
Yeah, I see my coach almost every week. But also one thing that I employ is mentors, completely outside of my industry. So my one mentor is in the defense industry, funny enough, and the other one comes from a television background. And what I like about them is, because they don't know my industry, they ask the stupid questions. If I had to ask, like, why are you doing that? And many times they would surface the orthodoxies that we hold on. Oh, but this is how this industry works. No, that's not. No. It's just an assumption. It's an orthodoxy that everybody's been doing. Why are you doing that? And I found mentors really opening up a lot to me, while I can work with my coach on the deep personal stuff, which can sometimes be challenging. And I think, what advice would you give when looking for a coach? Because there's many coaches out there, but what are the qualities that you look for in a coach?
So the best coaches are the ones that get you thinking about the right questions. And a good coach, it's all about asking questions, and digging deeper, going beyond the surface. So a quality that a coach should have is inquisitive, curiosity. They need to be curious about you, about how you think, about where you're going, about what you're doing, and also to be able to provide an objective perspective, something outside of where you're looking, and then any coach worth its salt will offer you a chemistry session. And I think a chemistry session is very important, and take them up on that. Or if they don't offer a free chemistry session, ask for one, because you don't want to invest time and effort into a relationship that, very quickly you just discover that there's just not enough chemistry there. So I think that, what else would I say? I don't think they need necessarily have experience in the field that you're working in, all of that, because coaching is, like you say, it can be from any field.
Yeah.
If they have, like, a housewife could not be necessarily the best coach for somebody who's an executive, for example. So you kind of want to try somebody who is a bit more understanding of the frustrations that you would come across in your way of life.
Semi-contextual, at least, have a semi type of a relation to that. Yeah, I agree, and I like the objectivity, because one thing I found being an entrepreneur for so long is, and it's a weakness that I have, and I've seen it in many other entrepreneurs, is we drink our own Kool-Aid. We eventually believe in our own greatness. I'm infallible. This will work. Like, no, it's not. Look at it from this perspective and everything else. And for me, that's the biggest thing, is to have that objectivity. But also what you said there, the questions. It's Dr. John DeMartini who says the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. And
Yes.
I found most people don't ask very good questions, or any question at all.
Yeah, and I just had a thought, and boom, it escaped me. And it's going to come back to.
It's on your left shoulder.
I can see the question.
It's there. No, that's fine. That's fine. But
yeah, sorry, it slipped
but
my
Joe,
mind now.
So many people have gone through amazing things during this 2020 with it, and we all had to adapt, and that's difficult. And just as a wrap up, if you were sitting now with a young person between 18 and 26, and even somebody between 35 and 55, because a lot of gray people are also losing their jobs, uh, what advice would you give them to start a business in today? How would you go about that today? What's the best advice you can give them if they had to start now?
What's the best advice? Well, I think certainly for the youngsters, they are agile. They can adapt very quickly, and they can use that to their advantage. So if I were a youngster, trawl the web for information, training. You can't know enough about enough at the moment on any topic. So educate yourself as much as possible. And in fact, that's the same advice for everybody. Yes. Because the minute you stop learning, you're already dead in the field that you're in. If I didn't continue to listen to podcasts and to do training, and every time I train people, I'm learning as well. So it's a continuous journey of learning. In terms of starting a business, a colleague of mine and I, we have this saying, it's instead of finding the gap in the market, find the market in the gap. Okay. So how can you turn things around? How can you, and another thing as well is, what can you automate? I think the businesses that are really succeeding are the businesses that have been able to automate elements of their business that is done through automation. So you don't need hands on deck to do that. But automation also helps you scale. So if I had to do anything differently from the past, I wouldn't look at my business from a I get paid by the hour for what I do. But I would rather look at how can I do what I do and then have economies of scale. And the last thing that I would do is I would consider the exit strategy right from the start. Because if it's just you and your time, you'll always be linked to your business.
Yes.
But if your business is a product that can be sold because you've designed something that works really well, and you can step away from it, and then you can start something new and fresh and interesting in another space. So I jumped around a bit, but I would
No,
look at those.
no, I agree with that. That's why I run. So I do leadership, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And leadership is under inside risk. The innovation is under venture designers, and the entrepreneurial stuff is under the human entrepreneur. So it's, although currently I'm the face of that, I can distance myself, and I'm with you. And it's not necessarily that you plan to sell the business from the beginning. It's just nobody knows what's happening down the line, just like 2020.
You know, this morning on my way to the beach, I bumped into some neighbors they're a young family and they are digital nomads. And they do the homeschooling and all of that. And the wife said to me, I have never worked as hard as I'm working now. And I was like, oh, well, I'm so happy for you, you know, because a lot of people don't have work. And she said, you know, it doesn't actually sound what I mean. She says, in order to have what I had before, I've had to rethink everything, redo everything. I've never worked as hard to just maintain or even have less than what I've had before. So wherever you are on the scale, never be afraid of hard work. You've really got to love what you do. You know, I sit and I'll work till midnight or get up at 4 a.m. and work because I'm loving it. It's still a passion.
You do.
But if you're not loving it, you're not going to have that passion.
No.
And okay, but that's definitely not my everyday life. But I'm willing to do it because I love it.
Yeah.
And make sure that you do love what you do. It can't just be to pay the bills. No. Because if it's just to pay the bills, then anybody can be employed for that position.
Now you have to take the suck with the pleasure, because the suck helps to define the pleasure. How can you know this is amazing when you didn't have something to compare it to? And I agree with you. You have to enjoy what you do. And the last thing, on the hard work. And I get livid sometimes when I work with young people and they, in a very cocky fashion, go, but I work smart, not hard. I'm like, no, hard is always there. The hard work is the base. The smart work comes on top of that. You can't work smart if you don't start with hard. You always have to put the effort in.
The effort, you know, I think maybe hard work might put some people off, but it's about putting in the effort. So my brother is a very successful businessman, and if you looked at him today, you'd think, wow, you know, he plays golf and he's basically semi-retired. But I know when he was starting out, he was up at 4 a.m. He was out dropping off people and organizing the day, and he'd come back to the house and make coffee for my mother in bed, and then her normal working day would start.
Wow, yeah.
And you know, he put in the effort, and when you're young, put in that effort now while you've got all of the energy, while the mistakes can still be made, and you're not going to lose a 5 million rand house and a 3 million rand car and all of that kind of stuff. Put in the effort now. Make the mistakes now while you've got little or nothing to lose, because it only gets harder in terms of, because then over time the fear sets in, and if I take a risk now, I might lose this, and now I've got a family, I've got other people to care about, and you know, the responsibilities only become more over time. They certainly don't become less. So when you're young and you can, just go out and do whatever you can do. And if you fail, fail forward. It's not about losing everything. You'll never lose if you're learning from every single experience.
That is so great. Joe, it's been an amazing advice that you've given, and thank you for the time that you spent with me.
It's a pleasure, Willem.
Hopefully one day we can have a chat again.
We will. You're always welcome.